Are you searching for a deeper understanding of yourself and your place in the world? Do you yearn for more balance, more peace, and purpose in your life? Well, look no further than the Intuitive Revolution podcast, your trusted source for holistic insights and intuitive guidance. I'm your host, Alicia Fariselli, and I am ready to take you on a journey to inner peace and balanced well-being. Welcome back. I'm super excited, you guys. You're going to have for such a great conversation. Nick has so many accomplishments. He has such an amazing story, such motivation. I can't wait to dive into this. Thanks, Nick, for joining us today.
Alicia, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, Nick, your journey from life-threatening challenges to becoming an obstacle course racing enthusiast is incredibly inspiring. Can you share more about the moment you decided to make a change and then how obstacle course racing came into your life?
So that moment came to me on a Friday afternoon back in 2016 when my boss walks in my office and he says, "Hey, Nick, I want to do a Spartan race and you're going to do one with me." And I looked at him and I'm like, no, no, fuck no. That sounds awful. An 8 to 10 mile trail run with obstacles, that seems miserable to me. I had no intention of making myself that uncomfortable. But I went home that night, and that's when I discovered the problem. I already was that uncomfortable. I had everything going for me. I had just been promoted at work. I was running a team of almost 100 people. I was dating a new girl that's my now wife. I was managing my diabetes. I was 2 years sober, and I had just decisively beaten cancer for the fourth time.
Wow.
And I was stuck. And I found myself that I was just suddenly terrified of losing it all. It was like I had accomplished so much and overcome so much just to get there that I didn't know what to do next. And so I took him up on the challenge, and what I expected was going to be one race has ultimately transformed my life.
So how many races have you accomplished so far?
I finished I'll do my 103rd and 104th on Saturday.
Wow. So
Now that's for Spartan races. In total, I don't know because I've done 6 major marathons and maybe 50 or 60 other obstacle course, 5Ks, 10Ks, endurance, sufferfests.
Yeah. That's incredible that you took a moment, your boss coming, a moment of like, obviously limiting belief coming in and being like, and then really digging into this, like, why am I not wanting to do this? And just, did it hit you kind of intuitively, or did you do some digging, more questioning with yourself?
You know, when I was in my early 20s, I worked out a lot. I liked being in shape, and I played competitive beach volleyball for a long time. And then I got hurt a couple times, I got drunk, and I got fat. And then I just became about all the excuses about all the things that I didn't think I could do. And diabetes was going to hold me back. I couldn't do this because my eyesight was bad. I couldn't live my life because sleep apnea, and I was tired all the time. I created this bubble around myself, and it was just lies. It was this victim mindset that I had cultivated over the years that was my grittiness at first, but what was once resilience became resentment, and it held me back. And so my first obstacle course race was I just wanted to get back. I just wanted to do something again. I just needed the motivation to start working out again and make it part of my life and just get physically fit. I truly had no idea what I was going to discover. And the process of it, of training was one thing, which we could talk about that in a minute. But my first race experience was truly liberating and transformative. Like when I'm walking up to that starting line and I'm just seeing these people jump the fire, and they're just covered in dirt and mud and grit and awesomeness. And I wanted what they had. And so I'm out in the woods, right? All of a sudden, running through the woods, climbing over 8-foot walls under barbed wire, climbing different multi-rigs and so forth. And it was like being a little kid again. There was no fear, no doubt, not afraid of getting my pants dirty. It was just, and it wasn't me against the world anymore. It was just me in the world. And it was just completely liberating. And I realized that everything I had told myself about myself was a lie.
That's amazing. That's such a great story. It's almost not really an extreme story. So what do you have for listeners who are thinking about doing a Spartan race, but they're like, I am too overweight, I'm not in shape. I can't do this.
Give me
What am
more.
I
Give
speaking
me
up for
more.
them?
Keep going. Give me a few more.
Let's see what else they would possibly say. It's too much time. I'm gonna get dirty.
Yep.
There's other people who are better than me
Yep.
out there.
What
Yeah.
else you got? Keep going.
Oh, let's see what else they might say. I'm too old.
Yep.
I'm sure that gets a lot. My body's too broken down. My knees hurt. Yeah.
Bring it. Keep going. Come on. Dig deep. There's a
Let's see
few
what
more.
else that would. Obviously, I'm not good enough. What do other people think about me if I don't complete it? Yeah, that's all I got
All
right
those things
Yeah.
are why you need to do it.
now. Yeah.
Every one of those reasons, that's not an excuse as to why you can't. It's why you need to, because you're wrong. You're lying to yourself. And I'm talking about anybody who can grasp onto those. And not for nothing, I've done 103 Spartan races. I have a friend of mine, he's 83 years old. He's done twice as many, more
Wow.
than twice as many.
He's how old?
83.
Did you hear that, listeners? He's 83.
He does more of those in a year than I do.
Wow.
There are friends of mine who are adaptive athletes. All right. There are teams out there dedicated to helping adaptive athletes get through the course. I don't care if you're missing a limb. I don't care if you sprained your wrist. I've completed races with broken ribs, but you don't have to do it the hard way. You can do it with help. It's not about you being an elite athlete. It's about you getting uncomfortable so you can find out who you are again and find out that you don't have these limitations and don't have these things holding you back. There's different divisions in the obstacle course racing. There's the competitive division, and then there's the open division. I like racing competitive, but I also love running open. I'll run multiple laps. Like on Saturday, it's a 5K distance one, so I'm going to run twice. One in the competitive division where there's competitive standards and I am racing for place, and I'm not going to be a threat to anybody's podium. It's still about me versus me, but I like the competition. The other part is the open aspect. I'm running with my wife and my sister-in-law, and we're going to take videos on the obstacles. I'm going to try to help them through, help my sister-in-law do what she hasn't learned how to do yet. I will encourage and help and support other racers who are seeing obstacles for the first time. And the thing I love about obstacle course racing is every single race provides a unique opportunity to inspire yourself, because it might be the fear overcome. I'm deathly afraid of snakes, and I spend my weekends in swamps running races. I'm afraid of heights, and I climb mountains, and ropes. And so it might be the obstacle that you have never done before. It's kind of like baseball, where there's a record broken every single game because they keep stats on everything. There's just a unique opportunity to always show yourself that you're capable of more than you think. And it's not just, it is a self-renewing energy. When you do that, you want more. It inspires more. Nothing inspires progress like progress.
Yeah, two things to take away. First is getting out of your comfort zone to actually start to grow, because you cannot grow if you stay in your comfort zone.
100%. As a matter of fact, they become prison cells.
Yeah. Second thing I know from what you said is connection to your mind and body and spirit. Like it's a total connection when you get out there, because you have to overcome your mindset.
The mind is absolutely the most important part of any of this. I encourage Spartan racing for anybody because it will challenge all aspects of you, but it may or may not change your life. But like it did mine, it provided a vehicle for me, for where I wanted to go. For others, it just to get outside your comfort zone for 5 minutes, because they do become prison cells. And the thing is, as adults, and I'm speaking in the majority here, I don't usually put thoughts in other people's heads, but I know that I'm right. We get to a certain point where we start playing defense. And that's what happened to me on the couch in 2016. I realized I was more concerned about protecting my ego, about protecting what I have built, I was playing defense and I was scared to lose. And when that's how you are, you're going to lose. You can't win if you don't play to win. And we just become more and more isolated. And then what happens is we realize it, and we feel that conflict, we feel that tension. And so we make excuses for it, and we begin to resent others for it. And it creates just this total negative cloud that we don't have to live.
Yeah, exactly what you last said. We don't have to live that way.
And you don't have to do what I do. Just do one thing that you don't do.
Yeah, just these small little switches, that we have create such a big lasting change. Like it may not be life changing, but in a way it could be it's almost life changing every time someone go through a race because you're going to be better. You're going to be stronger. You're still changing your life. Even if it's not just this drastic thing that you see, within one day, it's just little overnight changes that make the difference.
And that was it for me because good habits are a gateway drug. The most fundamental change I ever made in my life was setting the alarm for 5 a.m. to work out before work. And with that simple act of waking up to exercise, I woke up and I redefined everything that I had previously believed about myself. I changed the landscape. And because of that, well, I can't just go to sleep whenever anymore. So I treated myself to a bedtime, the first regular sleep cycle I had ever had in my entire adult life. Well, then I was getting more time with my dog in the morning. I was feeling more rested because I was getting more consistency. And I wanted to keep training. I wanted more of this. So I started stretching and I started eating better and I started drinking more water. And then I wanted to get mentally tougher. And so that's when I started meditating. And that was the combination. Simple box breathing while stretching
Yeah.
is what combined my mind, body, and spirit. It combined my sobriety and my spirituality path with calming my mind, with improving my body all at once, and it became just a part of who I was. And that was a pinnacle of the actual change in me. Everything that had led up to that was, I guess, the baby steps, the incremental progress that got me there. And that's how I began to start developing, because you can't grow till we get rid of the bad. And I had been sober for a while and I was cleaning up my end and cleaning up some of the wreckage of my past, but I was still in here all the time. And I even talked about it on a video that I posted this morning. If anybody's listening, that's May 14th, where I talk about we wake up in the past. When you wake up, your first thoughts are typically not about the positive visions that you're having about the day.
Yep.
It's usually about the first, what responsibilities am I having? The limiting beliefs and the stress and the things and responsibilities are the very first things that enter our mind.
Yeah.
So we're stuck in the past by default, and we have to begin to make conscious decisions to think forward and to get out of those limiting beliefs. And so I'm constantly challenging myself, anything that I don't think that I can do. I even started a new venture this year. Spartan has a different brand called DECA, and this is their gym circuits. So they're usually indoors or indoor outdoor, but it's not in a mountain, it's not in a farm or a swamp. It's doing alternate lunges and step overs and ram burpees. And there's 10 stations and they have different distances, some with running, some without. I don't do high intensity stuff. That's why I run ultras. I like 30-mile races that are going to take me 12 hours to go up and down a mountain. I don't like it when my heart's jumping out of my chest. So I have typically avoided those things, which is why I have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this year I've done my first two, and I'll be doing doing my next one in September. But I realize that I have to do it because I've been avoiding it. The things we avoid make us weaker.
Yeah. Fear is our best lesson, our best motivator, our best lesson.
100%. 100%. As long as we respond to it right, there's a reason we're afraid. We have to put it in perspective. Why are we afraid of what we're afraid of? But fear is often a direction. It's what am I afraid of? It tells me, when I was in sales and book that I'm writing, which God willing will be done by the time this podcast comes out. I talk about that, how number one, most of our fears are bullshit. They're lies that we tell ourselves, most of which to defend excuses and ego. However, sometimes fear is a good thing. And if I fear for my job, it's probably because I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
If I fear for my home, it's because I'm not financially stable. And I realize that, if I'm fearing for relationships, it's because I'm not investing the time that I'm supposed to and the focus that I'm supposed to. Yeah. And if I'm fearing for losing the life that I'm living, it means I'm holding on to something too tightly that I can't control. And that's the hard part to accept.
Yeah. Letting go of that control that's the hardest. Yeah. So you've managed to transform your health and mindset despite significant obstacles like you mentioned cancer, diabetes, and alcoholism. What were the initial steps you took on this path to recovery and transformation?
Interesting. It was just that, the first thing was I had to get sober. There wasn't, I always say the thing about priorities is my number one goal every year, every day is to stay sober one day at a time. And I actually review my goals every morning. I set 5 goals, no more, no less. And I review 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And my number one goal is to stay sober one day at a time. Yet I still check off, any activity that I do that's related to my program of sobriety. And even though I'm going to do these things, whether I check them off or not, it it's a mental kind of practice or reminder that this is number one. It focuses that other things will not get in the way, because the thing is, without number one, there's not much point in having a number two.
Mm.
So that said, I had to get sober first. I couldn't continue to operate the person that I was. Two, then I needed a new purpose. And I didn't know what it was yet. I just knew I needed the change. I knew I needed to target something. And so it was saying yes to a new experience. When I spoke to a group of middle schoolers a couple weeks ago in New Jersey, and that was actually one of the things I was speaking to them about, is to go easy on themselves, because most of the decisions they're going to have to make in life won't matter.
Yeah.
However, the one decision can change your life, because I said yes to a race, and now I'm a best-selling author, motivational speaker, and an endurance athlete at 45 years old. That one decision can change your life. So it was with every step that I just became more and more the person that I wanted to become. With every one of those steps, less and less that conflict that I was talking about earlier was gone. I don't have that conflict now. And then every time it arises, it's kind of like fear. It's a direction. It tells me that I'm living outside my purpose. I'm living outside, in alignment of my goals. I think a lot of the times, I think we know when we're veering off course. There's all sorts of signs that tell us. And the first one is when you have to make an excuse for something, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
And sometimes, by the way, sometimes the thing we're doing is thinking wrong. How many times do we make excuses for something we don't need to make an excuse for?
That guilt sets in.
And it's like, wait, why? I don't understand. What did you have to make an excuse for?
Yeah, it's almost you can become habitually a habitual excuse maker, I guess you'd say. Like it just becomes your nature, your first reaction.
And then it was the lie.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I remember when I was like 12 years old or something, I had been sick for days, and I was sick and I was home. And I think like the third day, I was still really sick. I had thrown up maybe even an hour before, but yet I could talk normal. And yet when I answered the phone, hello, and my dad was like, why the fuck did you do that? I'm like, you're sick. He would call me out. He's like, why'd you do that? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think faking sick is like the worst thing we've ever done, because then I don't know, but when I am sick, I feel like I'm supposed to feel worse than I am, or like I feel guilty ever being sick or
Yeah.
faking sick or taking time for myself.
Yeah, that's a big one is, especially in society is like, we're not supposed to take time for ourselves. It's that hustle, grind, hustle, grind, hustle, grind. But as you're healing and improving, taking that time for yourself is so important.
I think I'm going to say this whole hustle culture thing is a facade.
Yeah.
And I mean it, because the only people talking about it, they're not grinding, they're talking about it.
Right.
The ones who are grinding are grinding. And also, I want to challenge this way of thinking that work is not a curse word. It's not a bad word. I posted something on LinkedIn a while back, and it was a poll asking if you work on the weekends. And I was intentionally vague about this, okay? Because I knew I was going to get nasty comments a lot, not directed towards me, but just people
Yeah.
getting all like heated about, I spend time with my family, and yeah, you don't know. And why do we think work is bad? And why do you have to think that the word work is directly about your paycheck? I always work on weekends. I work on my training, I run. I work on my relationship by spending dedicated, intentional time with my wife. I work on my self-care and my mental health by taking my dogs to the dog park and being a good dog. Like, that's my spiritual wellness.
Yeah.
I work on my mental health, I work on my job, and I work on my physical health by resting. Um, Sometimes I work on my job. Sometimes I am making outreach messages on LinkedIn because who cares when I send it? It's more about getting it sent, like, so why does work have to be such a terrible thing? And I think that's why a lot of times people check out of their 9 to 5 and they're mentally checked out, period, because they're so far out of alignment with how to live their
Yeah.
lives that everything has become a chore to them.
There's no intention behind what they're doing. Like,
Yes.
you have attention. There's a reason why you're working on the weekend. They're working for goes back to the hustle culture of you have to constantly be grinding, but you're not really doing all that for an intention or purpose. You're doing it just to do it.
Now, I will say that's another thing too, right? Like it just, I hate the polarization of everything
Yeah.
because then it's like, I work 4 hours a week. I'm this person. Like, you know what? You give me the hardest working person and the smartest working person. I'm still taking the hardest working person because I teach them 2 or 3 things and they will run circles around the other person. There's only so much you can make a process out of. Now, that said, work smarter, not harder, absolutely, but you still need to work hard. And the grind pays, the grind wins. If you don't want to grind, do something else. Don't be an entrepreneur.
But do it with intention.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I will tell you, I find myself guilty of this in a couple ways. Because we get slapped in the face and we get off track, and then we go to our defaults, right? My default position is grind. Now, that sounds like a go phrase for a meme, and it is kind of cool sounding, but that's not always a good thing, because
Right.
if you canceled on me, right, at like 11 o'clock, if you're like, oh my God, technical difficulties, we have to do this again, I would immediately do prospecting, which is not a bad thing, okay?
Yeah.
But where are my follow-ups? Where's the intentional moves that I have that I'm making that are going to move things into the sale bucket faster? It's not always good to just grind, and because then you're going like this but not going anywhere,
Yeah.
right? And it's
That leads to
exhausting
burnout.
and it's
Fast.
mind-numbing. And when you're not seeing the results, it's mentally exhausting. So also, when I don't know what to do, I'm kind of facing this now because I'm doing this Spartan race this weekend that I want to give my best effort in the race. And sometimes I don't care about how competitive I am, but I really want to hit it hard on Saturday. And it's a lot of stairs. So I'm like, I'm going to go easy on my legs the next few days. However, and then next week, I'm like, well, it's going to take me a day to recover. I have my recovery run, which is just like a slow mileage zone 2 run for 45 minutes to an hour. That's also my go-to, which is not a bad go-to. But if that's all I ever do,
Yeah.
it's effort without outcomes. And I believe
Yeah.
our mental focus should be on the effort.
Yeah.
But if we're not intentional, you're just on the treadmill, not going anywhere.
Yeah. We're just doing the process without intention.
Which is why the grind is important, because when you have something execute, grind, execute. If you know your task in front of you, it's to hit this button 50 times today, get after it.
Yeah.
But we have to take the time, and that's also one of the things I talk about on a daily basis in terms of staying resilient and staying focused, is we have to remain adaptable, which means at least 2 to 3 times a day for me. Because the first thing I do when I'm done, I work out in the morning, I come in my office, which is in my home, I open up my binder because I live in priorities and discipline, and I look at my appointments and I make my task list for the day, and I prioritize according to what I think I can do. And I actually do not leave much room for error, which is something that Time Management 101 says you should leave yourself time for interruption. I don't, because the interruption is going to be from this. And so I just prioritize, what I can get done. But 2 to 3 different points throughout the day, I have to gut check where I'm at. And I may need to assess and reassess, because I don't need to be so rigid. It's just the idea is I don't want to leave a lot of time sitting around thinking about it.
Yeah. I feel like when you're in that flow process, the grind comes naturally.
Absolutely. And that's a great way of putting it. When you're and this just what I talk about with purpose alignment and, your purpose drivers, when you're marching in the right direction, like there's nothing better than an efficient vehicle.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, how has participating in over 100 Spartan races and numerous marathons impacted your mindset towards life and its challenges? We've talked a little bit about that, but go a little more into detail.
Yeah, this is a topic by itself. And the reason being is that every race contributed to what I'm about to say, but it's an evolving process because what obstacle course racing has taught me is that overcoming obstacles, that there's a process for overcoming obstacles, and it is the same whether or not it is climbing over a 10-foot wall or losing a job or facing a health crisis. The process is the same, and it first begins by identifying the obstacle. What is the thing I'm trying to accomplish? Define what success looks like. Tangibly define what success looks like. Where a lot of people fall short right off the bat is they know when something bad happens, they're just going to suffer until it goes away.
Mm.
Rather than saying, what is the problem? Okay, what does success look like? Then we have to do a real self-assessment. What is my weakness here? What skills, knowledge, experience, strength do I need to acquire? What resources do I need to acquire in order to achieve the obstacle? If we go into it and we look and say, oh my God, I'm too short, I can't get over that. I'm too weak, I can't get over that. I'm not experienced enough for this. I don't have the networking connections for this. We stop short. We just need to change the narrative and say, this is what I need to acquire in order to move forward. Then step 3, how do I acquire it? And so when I'm coaching people now, individuals, and we sort of get to that part of something that I'm not familiar with, like, because if I can help them directly, like somebody who's been 20 years in logistics and I can give them very specific real life experience on how to help them in their job, that's great. But when somebody has hit a threshold that I don't know either, then we're both on that step 3. So sometimes you have to Google, how do I learn about this? Just break out the crayons. Let's find out the steps that say, how do I learn it? Who do I need to talk to? Like, who are people who have done this? Can I reach out and introduce myself and they can tell me the steps to do it? Once we've understood what we need, how to acquire it, it then simply becomes a matter of execution, failure, and execution over and over and over again. And that's what I've learned is that failure needs to be experienced. Failure is only final if you quit. And if you don't quit, another word for failure is just simply practice. And I talk about really tangible things with this, and I talk about the rope climb at Spartan and how I had to fail multiple times. I had to learn different techniques. I got injured and I got nerve damage and I had to relearn how to do it with my less dominant hand and a different technique to get through it. Well, it's no different than how do I become a motivational speaker when I had no idea how to do it other than tell my story? Well, I find mentors, I find coaches, I find programs, learn how to do that, practice my craft relentlessly, introduce myself to podcast hosts to have great conversations, find out what things we can talk about. I learn, you practice. And the other part is this, is that I've learned that resilience is a process and it's one that can be learned. It is one that can be taught. One of the guys that I'm coaching said to me, he's like, I'm not tough like you because I haven't been through what you've been through, which is fair because I always say that you should have your own frame of reference. But at the same time, if life hits this kid hard, I am far greater prepared for it than him. So instead, my suggestion to him was, let's find some adversity. Well, you talked about getting uncomfortable, physically getting off the couch, every uncomfortable thing that you do, everything that you do that you don't want to do, everything that you do that sucks, just a little bit is more than you can handle, is more that you can handle. Every inch we step outside our comfort zone, we expand our comfort zone. Every beating you take, you're tougher. And it doesn't always have to be that hard. Sometimes it means taking a cold shower, skipping a meal, going without, doing something for somebody else. God forbid, go for a walk. Just things that are somewhat uncomfortable that challenge you. Read that book, set aside time, skip that show, deprive yourself of something for a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you build up the resilience, and then it just gets easier and easier. So when something happens and the next crisis happens, and it will happen, that's something I also had to acquire, is acceptance of the fact that I have to accomplish something awesome for there to be another book after Through the Fire. But I can only imagine the headline being like the seven-time cancer survivor, like 3-time asteroid survivor, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not done. Life is not going to discriminate. If anything, I'm on a short reprieve. But bad shit will happen again, and I'll be ready.
Yeah. You really have to make that first step.
You know what it was? Honestly, there was a defining moment for me. And I told you about how I progressed through obstacle course racing in the first 6-7 months. But I was in a car accident 8 months after my first race, the day after my sobriety anniversary. And my Jeep, which for any Jeep lovers out there, you'll understand the pain here, never rode right again. Um, I was sitting at a red light and I was hit by a woman from behind who was going full speed.
Mm.
And she flipped over like 4 times, like out of the movies. I went home that night. My cat of 12 years died.
Oh man.
I got nerve damage from the accident that was undiagnosed. Excuse me. I got several herniated discs. The woman who hit me died. It was hard. And it was really hard. And I found myself back on the couch, sad, wanting to give up. I just didn't know what that meant because I kept going to work. I kept feeding my dog. I kept taking showers, and you build momentum and you keep moving forward. And so I put another race on the calendar. And even though I had nerve damage in my arm, I didn't know, I couldn't do push-ups. Like I didn't know what I could do. I just started training anyway, but I was kind of flat. And I was listening to this motivational speaker on YouTube talking about, you a survivor, you a victim, you a survivor, victim. And I didn't like the choices. And I realized people have been calling me a survivor my whole life. And I'm like, you can't be a survivor unless you're a victim.
Right.
And to say I was a victim is fair, but to say I am a victim is a choice.
Yeah.
And I just got tired of being a victim. I hadn't, and I realized at that moment, even though I had done some obstacle course racing and I had made big changes in my life, I realized I hadn't overcome my adversity. I had only survived it. And I'll be honest, I got pissed and I threw a temper tantrum. And I'm like, I am not going to be a victim. Not to this, not to that, not to diabetes, not to my past, not to my darkness, not to cancer, not to any of the shit that's happened or any of the shit that's going to happen. I will not be defined by my adversity, but rather my triumph over it. And so, like a rebellious teenager, I've been on a mission to pick a fight. It was a moment of declaration, and that was 7 years ago, almost 8. And wait, no, 7, whatever. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
And it's truly changed my entire, I'm not a victim anymore. Bad shit happens, I give myself one day.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I'm robotic about it. It's just literally naturally after the first day,
Yeah.
I start saying, what is the obstacle?
Yeah. You got to process the emotions you're feeling. You can't keep those inside and be like, ignore them. So that gives you like the time to process them and then come to that resilient mindset. And
Like it takes me a day, but if it takes you a week, whatever, I don't know how to tell anybody to process. There are unhealthy ways, but whatever works for you.
yeah, just process it and then find the resilience. Yeah.
And then we got to just, what is the purpose? What is the why? What am I trying to move forward for? And, making the pain stop usually isn't a big enough motivator. We have to think of something beyond that. Something higher, with a higher purpose, a higher drive. Just resilience thrives when there's a deep sense of purpose.
I feel like if you're looking for the pain to stop, you're going to find the pain in something else because it's what you're so used to. So you're not going to completely heal from that. In order to completely heal, you have to find, again, that purpose of why, getting down to your core, your spirit, who you are.
Simon Sinek talks about downhill skiers, and he makes a reference about how when they're going through the trees, they're not looking at the trees, they're looking at the past. Yeah. And if you look at the problems, all you're going to see is the problems.
Right.
And so, yeah, I looked at the pain. I looked at everything. That's who I was. I defined myself through, oh, Nick had all this stuff happen to him. That's how I define myself. And I'm like, you're literally, your book jacket just says Nick is a victim of all this shit. Drop mic. Like, that's it. Yeah. But then not like, oh, what's the next bad thing? I'm focusing on all the bad things that are going to happen. That's the only way you're going to see life. And so now I have made a decision to look on the other side and to look through the fire and to look at the positivity. And I don't care who says it's naive, because I said it was naive for years. But here's the thing that I've learned, right? Let's say that there is an impossible situation that I'm facing right now, okay? And you can look at it one of two ways. You can spend the next several days looking at all the negative consequences, or you can look at the positive possibilities, right? And at the end of the week, the bad thing happens. Catastrophe happens. So the negative person was right. So the negative person may feel validated, and the positive person, and he may look at the positive person, see, you were looking stupid for being all positive all week, right? Positive person can be like, I don't know, because you suffered for 3 days before it happened.
Oh, yeah.
Who cares if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
Who cares if I'm wrong? You were already beaten and destroyed. I'm ready for this now.
Yeah.
Being positive isn't being naive and assuming bad things won't happen. Being positive is assuming they will happen and you will be okay.
Yeah. It's knowing that it's almost like a process. It's like you said, a process of how to overcome something that comes into your life. Yeah.
And it's not a one-time thing. It's not like I snapped my fingers 7 years ago and said I'm going to be positive all the time. I mean, I have to make this decision 400 or 500 times a day sometimes.
Well, if you did, then you're going to like have the magic pill for everyone in life.
Right? Yeah, here it is.
Yeah. I always tell like my clients is like, you're feeling this emotion you're feeling fear. You can't go from fear to just like joy instantaneously. You have to go up the scale and deal with that because it's the learning. This is a journey along the way to get to that joy. You can't.
Yeah, if you elevate that quickly, the path down is pretty quick too.
Yeah. Right.
For sure. There's real and there's those feelings of elevation. And it's funny, I was talking to a guy earlier, a potential coaching client, and we were talking about his goals, and he mentioned about being a good father. And I was like, okay, that's a really stupid goal. And he was like, why? And I'm like, well, how do you feel today? Do you feel you're a good father today? He goes, yeah. And I go, okay, congratulations. Accomplished. Like, have you ever felt like a bad father? Yeah. Do you think you'll feel like one again? Well, okay, bad. So your feeling is not, you can't base a goal off of how you feel. Like you had a good lunch with your kid, you're going to feel like a good dad. That doesn't make you one, right? You missed a game because something came up in life doesn't make you a bad dad either. So let's find out what the tangible way of looking at it is. And that's why, like, you can't live and die by these feelings. So it is important to have objective things to pursue
Mhm.
so I can keep everything in check. I mean, not for nothing. Sometimes the question you got to ask yourself is, do I have a roof over my head today? That sometimes number two doesn't matter that much.
Yeah. And even if you don't, you still have a place to lay.
I mean, that's it. Do I have safe shelter today?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you have food and the lights are on, you're doing good.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned the mind, body, and spirit connection. How do you balance these aspects in your training and daily life? And then what practices do you find most effective?
Um, I want to dispel the myth of balance to begin with. It's not balance. There's just life, and it's about aligning your priorities. I don't believe in such a thing as balance. I believe in an imbalance. And it's funny, a video I posted yesterday was talking about 1 hour at a time living rather than even one day at a time living and remaining in that hour in the present. And so, for example, as we're talking right now, I don't have any other windows open on my computer. I'm here now.
Yeah.
The phone is on silent. I mean, the dogs could go nuts, but we'll see. When I wake up in the morning, how I told you about how it's hard to get out of those thoughts, right? The first thing I have to do, well, the first thing I do is make coffee, then I pray, then I meditate, and then I start my training. But even from the moment I wake up, I say, I'm doing my warm-up routine now. I'm in my warm-up routine now. I'm in my warm-up routine now. Like, nothing else matters. This is how I'm spending this hour. I don't need to think about any of the day's events. I don't need to think about yesterday's events. I need to think about this. And when I'm doing the second part of my workout, the second hour is the main set. And I'm like, no, I'm working out now. I don't need to think about the day's problems, the day's events. I don't need to think about yesterday's problems or events either. It's right now, right here, right now. And I get back, I'm stretching, getting ready for work. I'm planning my day and doing and reviewing my goals. Now, it's very about focus on what am I doing. So my goals, though, I told you I have 5. And my 5th goal is about it's a reading goal, certain number of books, pages, etc. And so really it's about my mental acuity and just staying like mentally sharp and not falling off of something. To be honest, I'm not doing well with that goal because I set it arbitrarily. Historically, that goal was about something that I'm writing. But now that I am full-time author, speaker, coach, I rolled that goal into my work goal. So I'm sort of at a loss, which is why I'm behind on that goal and I'm not articulating it very well. Number four, though, is a race goal. There's um, a race called the Ultra. It's a Spartan Race in Killington, Vermont. It's a 31-mile obstacle course. There's about 18,000 feet of climbing. The
Wow.
DNF rate is like 70%, the do not finish rate. I have missed the cutoffs twice, and this is a big goal for me. But uh, it's a metaphor, I mean, it means something more to me for a lot of reasons, which we'll talk about another time. My third goal is a financial goal, though. Make X amount of money. And then, of course, every goal has benchmarks, and I break that down into be very specific about the ways that I do so, including my book. Number two is about my diabetes, maintaining a certain blood sugar level, which, of course, this is really, again, can't just say I want to be a good diabetic or I want to be healthy. So this is my tangible barometer and the goals that I break around it. And then number one is staying sober. So those aren't just goals, those are priorities. There's a reason I say that in the order that I did. The other day, I was willing to blow off my work day to help another alcoholic. If I had a health issue, that's going to come before my work.
Yeah.
My work comes before, if I oversleep my workout this morning, I don't get to work out today because I don't get to skip work for my training. That comes after my job. Now, working out and being healthy is part of my other lifestyle. So it's just a matter of priorities and then discipline, because I don't believe it's a balance. I have to do all of these things. And
Yeah.
the amount of discipline and focus that I spend on any area of my life will, of course, shift, right? Like,
Yeah.
not for nothing, I'm going to feel empty on September 15th. That's a goal that's dominated my life for several years. So when I complete that race, like, what? Well, so I'll have to then, I'll get to spend more time or more focus or more energy on something else for a while. But these things will shift. And it's just my purpose is to overcome every obstacle and inspire others that they can too. And right now, my purpose for this phase of my life is to share that message to whoever may need it as often and as loudly as possible. And so all of my priorities and goals are in line with that.
Yeah.
And so it's not about balance, it's about aligning them together.
Yeah. Yeah. Alignment is such a better word for what you're explaining. Yeah.
That's why I just think I think it goes back to what I said earlier. A lot of people will call work a four-letter word. I need this and I need to balance this. And well, you know what? Make less money then.
Yeah.
Make less money. Do a job that takes less hours. Why is it somebody else's fault that you want to spend more time with your family? You can't demonize the company that you work for because they're asking for 50 hours a week. That was the job you signed up for.
Yeah.
That's fine if you want to go spend more time with your family, get a different job.
Yeah.
Like, oh, but then we can't make as much money, then downsize. What's more important to you? It's your priorities, it's not your balance. You have to make these decisions. Not for nothing. I was in logistics, I was making really good money, and I left to do what I'm doing now, where I had an expectation of zero. So, you know what it's like to be on your own? I'm bootstrapping here. My purpose is so important, and I am
Yep.
so clear on it that if I have to sell my home and downsize, okay,
Yeah.
I will get there. I have an unwavering belief in my overwhelming success. I am driven by my purpose and my priorities are aligned. And yes, do I want certain lifestyle? Of course, but it's less important to me. As a matter of fact, out of those five things I said, other than the ability to travel to a race, I don't think I talked about things and lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's my life is my brand. It is my purpose.
Yeah. And it's like, we have see so many people going through life where they think that they want it all, but they don't want to work for it. They don't want to have to sacrifice something for it. They want the perfect family balance, the perfect work balance, the perfect material balance, but they don't want to have to sacrifice and suffer through it in order to get that. They want to go from 0 to 100.
Everybody wants to be in the movies. Nobody wants to be an actor.
Right.
I struggle with this as a leader that, I literally would have reps. It's like they miss work for 2 hours for a doctor's appointment. Cool. Like, not only do you have the time, I was a sales leader. I didn't even tell HR about that shit. Like, I don't care. You
Yeah.
don't tell anybody, hit your goal. Right.
Yeah.
But yet they wouldn't look at it the same way. Like they would come up short. They wouldn't make up the time or put in any extra effort or do anything to whatever. They'd come up short and it'd be like, why didn't you give me this or something? Like, listen, it's not a balance, it's priorities, or you decide to take a half day off or something. Like, cool, I encourage you to. We all need to hit reset.
Yeah.
We're in sales, we have goals. So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to realize you are making a sacrifice or a choice, and which one is going to get you closer to it. And then we don't want to accept that. So we blame the company, we blame other people, we blame other things. It's being an adult sucks. Like it
It's not
sucks.
supposed to be easy.
I lost a crown the other night on Sunday, from an old root canal in the back of my mouth. And I was so relieved when I talked to the dentist because I had been there a little bit ago. He's like, "Is it that one?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You don't need to rush in here. Come in a couple of weeks. We'll see if we can do something with it." And I'm like, "Thank God," because the thing is, number two, my diabetes goal again is a representative of my health thing, right?
Yeah.
Without number two, it really doesn't matter what goal number three is. So if I had to go, I had to go.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, especially, and the funny thing is, it sounds like I'm probably talking out both sides of my mouth to some people here, but when I'm saying like, "Hey, Ryan, shut up with your excuses. But hey, take care of yourself." If you take care of yourself genuinely, you won't have to make as many excuses.
Yeah.
Don't apologize for prioritizing your health. So it's not about balance, it's about priorities. Do not apologize for that. You have to understand something though. Your health is not your company's responsibility.
Right.
Do good companies help to keep their people in good health? Yeah, because they're smart, right?
Yeah.
But they're not a bad company just because they don't. I'm sorry, but it's
Yeah.
like that's not their fault. So yeah, sometimes we do have to make sacrifices because of our priorities. So if you're an hourly employee, for example, and you have to miss a couple hours of work to go to the doctor, that is a sacrifice. And it
Mhm.
sucks and it's tough. And that's why it's called a job. It's why it's called life. But
Yeah.
it's about priority. So, but we should never feel bad about prioritizing our health. Without number two, it doesn't matter what number three is.
If we're not physically able, our bodies are not healthy in a good healthy status, we can't do things. You're eventually everything's going to fall apart.
And a lot of times when we're mentally unhealthy, it's because we're physically unhealthy.
Yeah.
We're either not doing the self-care, we're not doing the exercise,
Yeah.
and it's funny though, because you know what? I'm an emotional eater. When I'm bored, when I'm whatever, I'll chow down on shit. And I'm like, why am I punishing myself? My diabetes is going to
Yeah.
suffer for days. I know this. Like, stop it, stop it,
Yeah.
stop it. I'll see the damage happening as I'm doing it. So it's like these things are out there, and there's a book, I think it was called Thinking Fast and Slow. Talks about, and I had read it years ago, but I'm gonna just address this, is we only have so much mental stamina
Yeah.
every day. And every decision we have to make reduces our mental stamina. Every stress, everything that we try to control, that is anything other than your words, thoughts, actions, and reactions, reduces your mental stamina. And if we aren't doing things to increase that mental stamina, like resting, meditating, thinking about positive things, petting dogs, like whatever,
Yeah.
the shit's just going to run out. And,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's why you're boom, living
Yep.
without intention, living without purpose, focusing all your energy on the wrong stuff. And then it's exhausting. It's exhilarating. I mean, not exhilarating, it's exhausting. And it's,
Yeah. Definitely have to. And it's the connection. It's not the balance, it's the connection. It's, like you said, taking care of your body in order to take care of your mind. And of course, the spirit portion, which I tell people, it doesn't have to still have to be something like religious, God. It just you're taking care of your, how am I supposed this? Your sanity.
you know, as much as people will get uncomfortable anytime we mention something about religion
Yeah.
or God or even the word spirituality, I find at least most people believe that there is a power in the universe greater than themselves.
Yeah.
And that power I call God.
Yeah.
I do not subscribe to anybody's organized religion, which means I truly am open to all, because
Yeah.
it does not interfere with my faith. But all the evidence of God in my life I need is the fact that I haven't had to pick up a drink in almost 10 years.
Yeah.
There's no other explanation for me. And so I have over the years worked on creating more of a spiritual relationship with God, and it is my God. It's not anybody else's rules, but it's probably, similar concept of the same God that a lot of people will think of, but
Yeah.
it's a very simple relationship, and it just helps to remind me, number one, that I'm not it. Having a higher power is a big defense against me thinking that I am it, and me trying to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders,
Yeah.
me working on making decisions for other people and other things, and me trying to control circumstances beyond my control. All those things are the exact opposite of meditative state, and exact opposite of spirituality, and exact opposite of having a mind body connection, because the only thing operating there is a mind going crazy,
Yep.
which is hurting the physical body. My biggest thing for me is my trigger is when I'm dealing with the health insurance companies, and I will lose my mind, and I have lost my shit, and I have misbehaved in ways of biblical proportions. And I have also gotten people to do things that just should not happen because these people are impossible to deal with. But I have to ask myself, what is the cost of that?
Mm.
Because, yeah, I might have got my medication 12 hours earlier, but I'm exhausted. I'm physically exhausted, and
Yeah.
I'm probably shameful of my behavior too. So what's the value of like trying to control
Yeah.
other people and manipulate other situations? It's a nice skill to have, but you really got to ask yourself if it's worth it.
Yeah. Typically not.
I have found that there has been a time where my ability to break down a situation and communicate my goals to people has been helpful.
Yeah.
But anytime where I've had to behave like that and let emotion run the show, the result wasn't worth it. It just creates fractured relationships. It's exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not, it hasn't been worth it.
Letting fear run instead of love.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it, because it is. It's a reaction. It's a reaction to a fear of not getting your own way, of not getting something you want or losing something you have. And then we behave like a toddler,
Yeah.
or I behave like a toddler.
I'm sure we're all very capable of doing that. And I don't know anyone in their lifetime that has not as an adult.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all had our fair temper tantrums.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I want to talk finally for someone listening who feels overwhelmed by their own life challenges. What is the first step you recommend they take to start moving towards more resilient and fulfilling life?
Start dreaming again. Start dreaming big, big and often. When I spoke to that group of middle schoolers in New Jersey a couple weeks ago, I told them, I go, hey, you know how y'all think that adults don't know what it's like to be a kid anymore? They're like, yeah. And I go, you're right.
Mhm.
Most of us stopped dreaming. Most of us got too afraid to play without getting our pants dirty. Dream big, dream often. When I'm working with people, the very first assignment that I give them before our first meeting, and we won't have the first meeting unless they do it,
Yeah.
is an exercise that I want them to think about when they're like 85 years old, and write like what their life is like and what it's been like, things that they've done, that they've had, the person that they are, how they're currently experiencing their life. And then we reverse engineer that from 65, 55, 45, all the way until we're 1 year out from where they are. And I'm like, get outside of any conventional thinking, like stop limiting yourself by yesterday's choices. It's only going to get worse. Stop thinking about the job that you had that was so great is the best job that you're capable of getting. Dream big, dream often, dream huge. Nobody is going to dream big enough for you. So I can't encourage that. I just can't encourage that enough. Everybody that I've spoken to, nobody has been able to dream bigger than I can challenge them to dream. And I'm not unrealistic, because I won't call out something unless I think there's a tangible way for us to take action towards it. And yet nobody that I'm talking with so far has really been able to just create a vision for themselves outside of all the limitations that we've picked up over the last, 30 to 50 years. So start dreaming, have fun.
Yes, dream big. Well, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. If any of this resonates with you and you want to start working with Nick, all his information will be in the show notes. So please reach out to him. This has been fantastic. I feel super motivated for the want to keep this going.
Me too. Let's roll.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again.
Thank you.